Hi, my name is Amanda Thomas. If you're following me here from TikTok, thank you so much. You probably know me as Murder Geek 7 over there, and I've been following things like true crime or just creepy things. I am trying to focus more on the true crime aspect on this YouTube channel, so if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and join me on this adventure. If you also want to, you can hit the little notification bell at the bottom so you can be notified when I upload. I will warn you, I am still learning this YouTube scape. It has been a wild ride, but I am taking classes, so I hope that helps. But anyway, I do want to warn you that the things we discuss here are pretty intense. Today we will be discussing things like mental health and self-harm and those kinds of things. So if that is something that your mental health can't handle, just go ahead and click off this video and catch me on the next one. Today we're going to be talking about Johnny Lewis. Johnny Lewis was a well-known actor in Sons of Anarchy. That was where his big break was. But many people don't know what happened to him later on in life, and it's a very tragic story. Johnny Lewis grew up in Los Angeles, California. His family was very involved in Scientology. In fact, his family was able to achieve the highest degree you can get in Scientology. Johnny was involved in Scientology, but he left when he was in his 20s. Johnny would often star in the educational movies that the Scientology people would make, and he also started attending auditions by the time he was 6. He was 6 or 7 years old when he landed his first role in a cereal commercial, and things just kind of went up there for him. He started taking smaller roles like roles in Boston Public, and he even played a serial killer in Criminal Minds. That's how I knew Johnny Lewis. I was not a big fan of Sons of Anarchy, but he was a pretty well-known actor. By 2005, he was a regular on the red carpet. He had began dating Katy Perry, and their romance was a whirlwind. In fact, when they broke up, many people rumored that 2 of Katy Perry's songs are in fact about Johnny. Like I said before, his biggest role was in Sons of Anarchy. He played Half Sack. If you watch Sons of Anarchy, I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, and he was a loved character. But by the 3rd season, the writing had become too violent for Johnny. Johnny was not someone that you would find partying and drinking and doing drugs. He was more of a philosopher. He liked to write poetry and would rather play chess until 3 in the morning instead of going to a party. Johnny got along well with pretty much everyone. It seemed like he could always find somewhere to fit in with any group of people. He was well loved. After he left Sons of Anarchy, he wanted to focus more on his writing. He found out about the Writers' Villa through a friend of his. The Writers' Villa was a place for new and upcoming artists to stay while they worked. It was a peaceful place, and Kathy Davis owned it, and she was a lovely woman, and she enjoyed bringing these people in so that they had somewhere to stay while they adjusted to Hollywood life. Kathy was a transplant from Texas. She had moved to California in 1950 to attend UCLA. It was after that she took multiple publishing jobs and got married and had her first daughter in 1958, her only daughter in 1958. Her and her husband bought the home that became the Writers' Villa, and by 1980 they had divorced, and Kathy went into real estate, and she was a successful real estate agent. She would often help elite clientele, and when they were house hunting, they would often stay with her. This soon evolved into what was the Writers' Villa. She would, like I said, take in people who were trying to adjust to Hollywood life and trying to work on their art. And she wasn't just a landlord, though. She was a confidant. She enjoyed staying up with them, listening to these people's struggles and listen to them talk about what they were working on and those types of things. She was a confidant. She was a friend. Word of mouth slowly started getting this going. It was extremely difficult to get a room at the Writers' Villa because it was so popular. Many people liked staying there, and rent was steep. You paid anywhere from $1,650 to $3,000 depending on the room that you were staying in. Each room had its own bathroom, but there were common spaces like the kitchen and a couple of living rooms. But it seemed that it was Kathy that drew people in. She was such a loving soul that people enjoyed staying with her, and she really seemed to help people get through their really difficult times while adjusting to Hollywood life. And in 2009, Johnny found out about the writer's villa through one of his friends. He called Kathy and asked her if she had a room for him, and she did. So in 2009, he moved into the Red Suite at the writer's villa. Kathy and Johnny soon became friends. Anytime somebody would come to the writer's villa, Johnny would just speak so lovingly about Kathy, and he had nothing but good things to say about her. But that same summer, Johnny started dating a woman named Diane Marshall Green. Their relationship didn't work out, but when they found out she was pregnant, Johnny was so excited. He wanted to be a father. They decided to move in together so that they could both be a part of their daughter's life and raise her together. But this would not work out, and Johnny soon moved out of her apartment. What would follow would be a vicious custody battle. Both of them wanted to be a part of their daughter's life, as they should have, and Johnny ended up losing this custody battle, and this was devastating for him. This is not what he wanted. So in October of 2011, Johnny decided to take his motorcycle and go out for a cruise to, I guess, kind of clear his mind. He ended up having a motorcycle accident. And while doctors suspected that there might be a concussion of some sort, after multiple tests, they sent him home not suspecting any type of concussion or anything like that. But Johnny's mother started noticing that his behavior was changing pretty drastically. Normally calm and kind, Johnny began acting erratic and aggressive towards people. His friends soon started picking up on his strange behavior. While in an acting class, Johnny seemed to adopt a British accent out of nowhere, and when his friends asked him about it, he shrugged it off like it was nothing. Johnny was staying with his parents at the condo he had bought them, and on January 3rd of 2012, Johnny told his parents that he was going to go for a walk. He was wearing his pajamas but no shoes, and he just kind of walked out the door. While he was walking, Johnny says that he heard somebody screaming from one of the neighboring condos. He broke into the house but found nobody there. Two men happened to come home during that time, and they asked him to leave. Johnny became aggressive and they started fighting, and the fight spilled out onto the patio. Johnny tried biting one of the men to get away, but they were able to detain him until police arrived. When police arrived, Johnny said that he had acted in self-defense, but the police didn't buy this. They charged him with burglary and breaking and entering, and he was taken into Twin Towers Correctional Facility or County Jail, whichever one it is. While incarcerated, Johnny was taken in for a 5150, which is an involuntary hold for psychiatric problems. The correctional officer said that he was banging his head against the concrete walls and trying to jump off the second story. So they considered this self-harm ideation, like he was trying to hurt himself, and so they did put him on this involuntary hold. Johnny spent a total of 8 days there before he was bailed out by his father. When his father got him from the county jail, Johnny had 2 black eyes, and it looked like he had been beaten severely. He was not the Johnny that they all knew. And when he got back to his parents' home, he kept complaining about light sensitivity and would turn off all the lights in the house. But when his parents or his family would turn the lights back on, he would eventually go down into the basement and disable the fuse box. He also kept showing signs of wanting to hurt himself, and again, this was just so unusual for Johnny. This was not his typical behavior. His parents wanted him to get a second opinion and go in to get more testing, more MRIs and stuff like that done, but Johnny refused. So his family just kept a really close eye on him, and by the end of January, he seemed to be doing better and wanted to move out on his own. His family decided that that would be okay, so he moved to Santa Monica. It was in Santa Monica that his behavior became very strange again. In front of a yogurt shop, he seemed to randomly punch somebody. He was arrested for that and then released on bail. When he got out for that, he walked fully clothed into the ocean. When he was pulled out of the ocean, he had to be taken into the hospital for hypothermia. Once released for that, he broke into somebody's house. Now, he did tell police that he thought that this was his friend's house, but he was still arrested and once again released on bail. Johnny's family insisted that he go see a doctor after this. The doctor said that he had bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Now, these are 2 pretty serious mental health conditions, but they can be treated with the right kind of medication. But Johnny refused all the medication for this. He said he was not going to take any of it. And Johnny was still in the court system for the first fight back in January of 2012, but he was convinced that the charges would be dropped. His lawyer was working on a deal for him that he would be taken to a rehab or some kind of facility to deal with his mental health issues in lieu of going to jail. But Johnny was convinced that these charges would be dropped because it had been self-defense. So he fired his lawyer and decided to represent himself in court. This seemed to backfire completely. He was sentenced to 1 year in jail, but because of overcrowding, his sentence was brought down to 6 weeks only. He was released on September 21st of 2012. Johnny was broken after this, and his father didn't know what to do. So when he picked Johnny up from jail, Johnny asked him, "Hey, would you call Kathy and see if she has anything available in her home? That's where I'd like to go stay." Now, his father called her and she said, "Yes, immediately. I'll get him in. He can get back into the red suite, and I'll go get everything ready for him." So Johnny's father dropped him off. His father said that he had not warned Kathy that Johnny was struggling pretty severely. He just remembers thinking that this is one of the last places that Johnny had truly felt at peace and happy. He also knew that Kathy had always showered Johnny with love and was just always good to him, and so he thought that this might be a really good place for him to get back to who he really was. So after moving Johnny into the house, his father called him the next day and just asked him how he was doing. When Johnny answered the phone, he seemed irritated. He answered the phone saying, "What do you want? I'm busy." But he seemed to calm down as the conversation went on, and that was the last time that Johnny's father would ever talk to him. On September 26th of 2012, Dan Blackburn, who owned the neighboring house by the writer's villa, was watching Johnny walk back and forth in front of the houses. He was watching this for a while before Johnny finally came to his house and knocked on the door. He opened the door a little bit to talk to Johnny, and Johnny just said, "Hi, I'm your new neighbor. I wanted to introduce myself." And Dan, introduced himself and just kind of walked away from the situation. It was kind of strange. Johnny was only wearing jeans and red sneakers, and he didn't have a shirt on. Dan and his wife had hired a painter to come in and paint the patio on their ground level. So this was going on, and it was about 30 minutes after the first interaction with Johnny that Dan heard his wife screaming from the front yard. When he went to go see what was going on, he saw Johnny on top of the painter just beating him. Dan instinctively stepped in between the two, tried to pull Johnny off, and told him to quit doing that, when Johnny turned around and punched him in the eye. Dan was in his 70s, and this knocked him to the ground. But Dan stood up and punched Johnny back, but this didn't seem to faze Johnny at all. He just stood there glaring at him. He then took one of the chairs and hit him across the back with that. This seemed to stun Johnny enough that the three of them were able to run into the house to try to barricade themselves. All three of them pushed their body weight against the door, but Johnny had slid his hand into the door, and they were trying to push the door into it, and finally Johnny pulled his hand out and they watched him run away. This is when Dan called police, but he watched Johnny jump over 2 waist-high fences. He said that he looked like Spider-Man, that it seemed like he never even touched the ground. When police arrived, they found Johnny on the driveway. He had either fallen or jumped from either the roof or a patio that was about 15 feet above him. He was face up, and his skull had been cracked. He was dead. When they went into the writer's villa, the first floor seemed pristine. Nothing unusual had happened there, but when they went up into Johnny's room, they found a rusty hammer with traces of blood on it. They followed the destruction into Johnny's bathroom, and there they found a cat that had been beaten to death. When they went into Kathy Davis's room, they found blood on her bed, her chair, and her nightstand and her bed frame. And they found Kathy. She had been beaten to death and strangled. Her cause of death was ruled as blunt force trauma, and Johnny's death was ruled an accidental fall. Police believe that after the first initial contact that Johnny had made with Dan Blackburn, he had walked into the villa, and when he walked into Kathy's room, Kathy would not have been afraid of him because they were good friends, and that's when he attacked her. People immediately started blaming drugs for this incident, but when Johnny's toxicology report came back, there was no trace of drugs or alcohol or even the psychiatric drugs that he had been prescribed. Johnny was on nothing. There was one rumor floating around that Johnny had disabled the fuse box, and Kathy had confronted him saying that he was not to do that again, and this had angered him, and that's what caused the aggression towards Kathy. But the real motive is still unknown, and no one really knows what happened to Johnny. Was it a concussion that turned him into this person? Was it, from the motorcycle accident? Could it have been that concussion that caused him to go into this psychiatric break? Or was he dealing with things like bipolar and schizophrenia and just not handling them the way they should have? The motive is completely unknown, and it just ends this really tragic story. Kathy was a beautiful woman, and she didn't deserve this at all. It's a tragic story, and it just goes to show how important mental health is and how important it is to take care of your mental health so that we don't see more crimes like this happening. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Leave them in the comments. If you know more information about this than what I could find, I'd love to hear that too. Leave your thoughts down in the comments, and as always, like and subscribe if you like the video. Subscribe if you want to, share if you want to. But either way, thank you so much for spending some time with me again today. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next week. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye, friends.